All right, everybody, welcome to the championship podcast. We have our 2007 champion here, Michael of the Huron Herons. This is late. It's coming a little late, but it's at least it's coming. Better late than never, as they say, right, Michael?
Yeah, I appreciate you having me either way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I figured as we go into the 2008 playoffs, we got to remember everybody. We got to remind everybody what they're fighting for, and that's the chance to brag in the championship podcast, of course. So, yeah, a little background before we get started. Obviously, you joined us for the preseason podcast, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, happy to do it.
Yeah, you're the manager of the Herons in the Topaz division in the Fire Conference. And I think you are the fourth manager in Huron history. And just give a little background there. We had a guy named Arlo for half a season in 2001. We had a guy named Sean for half a season in 2001. 2002, 2003, a guy named Dave was running the team. And then you took over, I believe, right at the start of the 2004 season. So you've been in charge for, this is your fifth year, I think, and you won your championship in your fourth season at the helm.
Sounds close. To be honest, I don't remember which year I took over.
Yeah, fair enough.
I know it was after they lost, I think they lost something crazy, like 113 games, but I don't remember what season that was.
Yep. Yeah. You took over. No, I think it was 2004. So, yeah, you're one of the more storied franchises in a bad way in TBL history, but you've turned it around for sure. You've been a contender for the last 3 seasons, at least, maybe 4 seasons. Now I'm losing count. But yeah, last 3 seasons. Yeah, I'm looking at your history now. So yeah, so that's kind of where the franchise is at now. You are the defending champion. You were in the playoff hunt again this year, although we're not going to talk about the 2018 much.
That's good.
Yeah, and I guess on a personal level, congratulations. And we'll just let everybody know that, and hopefully this is okay, that you're going to be a dad soon, maybe a first-time dad, second-time dad. Well, you're not a second-time dad, but
first-time dad, scheduled to be induced tomorrow, just in time for the playoffs. So
cool. Congratulations on that. So that's huge news for you. So.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So if for some reason you're not around to export tomorrow, we're all just gonna hold it against you. So.
I mean, I'm sure I'll be fine with just doing it without me. I'll try to get an export in tonight.
Yeah.
So
again, I'm kidding, obviously, and I'll just be aware of what's going on with you. So. All right. So feel free to add anything I left out, Michael. Anything you want to mention about your team, or anything else you want to share about yourself?
Nothing that I can think of.
Okay. Well, let's get started with last season. Let's talk about let's talk about your history. This is how we've kind of done these championship podcasts. Let's talk about your out of the park history. How long have you been playing the game out of the park baseball, and what drew you to the game?
I think I've been playing it was something like 10 years. There used to be a Red Sox blog, I think it's still around, called Over the Monster, that I was pretty active on. And some of the people on there started a OOTP league that was pretty small, like just 6 of us. And I joined that and was immediately addicted. And I've been playing online leagues ever since. A lot of the times I'll try out a bunch of new leagues and then end up sticking with 1 or 2 per version of the game. So.
Yep. Nice. And do you like baseball? It sounds like you do. Do you like baseball outside of the park? Are you?
Yeah. I'm a obsessed Red Sox fan, unfortunately, and also play softball. I play softball on a team with my dad every summer. So basically, yeah, very very baseball centric. Yes.
Yeah, very cool. And so it actually sounds like we have quite a few Red Sox fans in the league. I'm a Red Sox fan myself.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. They kind of own all of New England in a sense. But so in terms of Red Sox lore, who's your favorite player? Like who do you kind of reflect on as like the guy that inspires you?
Probably Mookie, or not Mookie Betts. I did really like Mookie Betts, but before him,
I did too. Yeah.
Dustin Pedroia was probably the one that I related to the most.
Yep.
Because I usually play second base too, and I'm about the same height as Dustin Pedroia, so you don't see a lot of people his height in the majors, and I just thought he was really fun to watch. So
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to not root for a guy like Dustin Pedroia and what he brought to the game, especially as an underdog. I'm always a big fan of underdogs, and I think
yeah,
there were questions about him that rookie year, right? He definitely struggled for the first 2 months or so, and then
yeah, he looked
the rest
awful.
is history.
Yeah,
So that's I try to remember Dustin Pedroia when my prospects and out of the park are start going right away. I'm like, don't worry, they're gonna turn around and they're gonna win Rookie of the Year and then MVP the next season. They got this.
yeah. And I mean, when I started to turn around the Herons, and I brought up like some of the big guys, like Victor Rivera, my shortstop. I think he got off to a pretty slow start, or maybe I'm thinking of someone else. Um, a lot of the prospects I brought up at first were the same way. Like they just were getting off to a slow start. It helps when you're not worried about how competitive you are,
Yeah,
because then it's not as stressful.
it's funny how it can make that switch too from when you're just building your team and you've been in the cellar and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, these guys are actually doing pretty good. Time to flip that switch.
Yeah, that definitely happened a lot faster than I was expecting, and I think I got really lucky that one year that I won like 100 something,
Yeah,
110 games or
I don't think
something.
anybody picked you for the playoffs, and you just exploded that season. And
Yeah, I thought I'd have an outside chance, but I got really lucky with a lot of players. A lot of players had career years that season.
yep. Um, So how many online leagues have you been in? Have you participated in a lot of different leagues? Are you in more than one league right now, or is this the only one?
I've probably been in over like 100 leagues.
Damn.
I joined leagues and then I test them out and see how it goes. And a lot of them I don't end up, staying in for that long. Usually, a lot of the time something happens
Sure.
pretty quickly where I'm like, I don't think this is the best fit for me. Um, but I'm just in one other league right now, and it's with the new version of OOTP, and
Oh,
it's
yep, 25.
as the Red Sox.
Nice.
So that's been fun to kind of get familiar with that new version. I used to stay up a lot more. I used to like read the forums religiously and figure out like what all the meta is for each version of OOTP. And I've kind of settled down on that a little bit now. I'm just having a good time, enjoying the new version, not trying to like meta game everything that I can. So
All right. So everybody who's listening, Michael works the system, and remember that. And he's already getting a head start out of the park 25 on all the different leagues.
I have had a few rules named after me before in leagues, but
Yeah.
I've calmed down. I've calmed down, so I'm hopeful that that won't be the case in this league.
All right. Fair enough. How many times have you won championships? Have you won in other leagues that you have stuck around in, or
Yeah, I've won in other
it
leagues.
sounds like if
There's
you've messed with the meta a little bit or really examined the meta, it may have turned into some success. I'm gonna
Yeah, I used to really enjoy kind of starting like drafting from scratch, and I've drafted from scratch some relatively competitive teams that usually end up winning at some point over the time period that I'm in a league. But lately, I've really enjoyed more like taking over teams like the Herons and trying to like turn them around. I
yeah,
found that that's a lot more fun.
yeah. But it's a shame that you missed our inaugural draft because that was a good time when we drafted like 100+ rounds. But would have been interesting to see what kind of team you would have created out of the gate.
Yeah, and
Um,
who knows? They probably wouldn't be competitive right now. They probably would have had. Usually, I
the
try to
opposite
compete
direction.
now, and I don't do what
Yeah,
this previous GM did and draft kind of for the future. So
yeah, yeah. You did get set up. I think when you came in, you'd had one of the top farm systems, so you were
yeah,
set up to succeed for sure. And then you definitely were super active in the trade market, made a lot of moves, and just improved that situation even more. So, um, but I think your window's here. I don't know. Let me take a look at your future here. I don't think you have a ton in the system. I think
no,
you're all about to win now at this point.
I basically zero farm system.
Yeah, you've completely gutted
Yeah,
it.
I have one guy, Phil Ford, who's currently in my bullpen, who might end up being. He was a former top prospect. He might end up being a decent starting pitcher prospect. But he's pretty much it.
Yep.
Everyone else is I've traded them or I've called them up, and they're in the majors. So
All right. Well, let's talk about your 2007 team a little bit. Obviously, you started off with success back in 2005. That's when you did win that 112 games that we were talking about and kind of came out of nowhere. Just a small improvement from the 66 wins you had the year before. So
Yeah, a
I
little
think
bit.
that's a 46 win difference if I'm doing the math right, which might
Yeah.
be the biggest turnaround I've ever seen.
Yeah, it
Um,
was, I think, the worst record in league history, and then the best one in league history. There was one year in between where I was like
there was,
500
yeah,
or
you went
something.
from 50 to 66 to 112, so pretty
Yeah.
amazing turnaround there. As the youngins developed, and then you brought in some veterans to kind of tie with that with like Omar Gonzalez, and I think Phil
Yep.
Crosthorne was an assistant for a while, and a couple other
Hmm.
guys. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so what I know I'm making you reflect back because we are so far into 2008, but what about that 2007 season stuck out? What were you thinking going into that season, basically your third season after back-to-back playoff misses? You did go really far in the playoffs this previous 2 years. What were your years going into that third year? Or what were
Yeah.
your thoughts, excuse me, going into that third year?
So the first season I was really competitive. I lost in the championship, and then I think I kind of over adjusted and made some bad free agent signings and kind of went in. I kind of was like, when you watch the games live, the strategy of having like a lot of good defensive guys with high, war doesn't look quite as enticing when you're seeing like all these horrible ratings come up to bat. Uh, so I went all in and tried to get like as good like all-star hitter at every position that I could, and it didn't really work out. So I was kind of trying to adjust back to what got me successful in the first place and get back to like strong defense and improve my pitching.
All right, yeah, and in I feel like you were still pretty hitter heavy at the beginning of that season. You did trade for some pitching midway through the season, which
Yeah.
we'll talk about in a minute. But um, looking back, oh, actually, I guess we can talk about it right now. Looking back on that regular season, were there like key factors or key players that you think contributed to your success? Talk about those trades that you did, and kind of how that reshaped your team right at the trade deadline, really.
Yeah. So I've been trying to acquire like a top of the rotation starter. I really kind of felt like that was what my team was missing. And I got really close to trading for George Reed, but then like the sim before we like agreed in principle to a trade, and then like the sim before the trade deadline, he suddenly wouldn't waive his no trade clause anymore. So that fell through. And then Ricardo Anguiano was available. So I kind of went all in to acquire him. And I had reached out to Philadelphia about George Reed and hadn't heard back. So I just kind of assumed I wouldn't be able to get anything done with him. And I had kind of rebuilt my farm system, and I had some guys who I was going to bring in and uh, who I drafted out of college that were going to kind of be like get a youth movement going again. And then turns out George Reed was available. So I decided I might as well just go all in because I don't think I've ever had an opportunity in any OTP league to have like the two highest rated starting pitchers on the same team.
Yeah,
So I thought that would be fun and see what happens because they'll pitch at least 50% of my playoff games. In a lot of series, they'll end up pitching more than 50%. So I figured, um, sure, I've never had an opportunity to do that before. So I went super aggressive, probably gave up more than, some other teams would have, but it ended up working out, fortunately. Otherwise, it all could have blown up in my face. But
yeah, and that's sometimes what you have to do to land guys like that. I mean, honestly, they're both under 30. They're both
yeah,
studs. So I
yeah,
think the fact that you were able to get it done was a pretty smart move. I can
yeah.
definitely tell you, I was one of the ones criticizing you silently for trading away Omar Gonzalez for nothing. Even though
Yeah,
you said it was in a salary dump, it was in a questionable salary dump, and I was just like, what the
yeah.
hell is he thinking here? He's in first place, and then you get to put a ring on at the end of the season, so I have to shut the fuck up and admit I was wrong. But
Well,
no, I mean,
I don't.
honestly, freeing up that cap space helped you bring those guys in.
Yeah, it really did help me to kind of reset because I made some really bad free agent contracts. When I traded Omar Gonzalez, I was like 7+ games up on the division.
Yeah.
and I had some prospects that I thought were gonna come in and kind of help the offense, and then that was before I realized George Reed was available, so I ended up trading those. And one of the salaries that I dumped with him ended up opting out of his contract the next year,
Right. Yeah.
anyways.
That's
So
why I thought it was a questionable. I think it's
yeah,
Eduardo Alberto, right? And that's
yeah,
why I thought it's questionable. It's like he's probably going to opt out anyways because out of the park logic is fucked.
right,
Guys always opt
yeah,
out. But
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So it ended up working out because I won, but I don't think it was.
Well, you also tanked Galveston because they ended up falling off. They
That's
completely
true.
fell off once you made that
Yeah,
trade, which was
yeah.
pretty insane. So just funny how it worked out. And honestly, you fell off too. Now that I think about it, your
Oh,
success
yeah,
was terrible, and you almost
yeah.
missed the playoffs. And then at the end, you kind of just brought it back together.
Right. I was like a 90 something win wild card team.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I ended up squeaking in, and uh, I was in. It really goes to show that like it doesn't really matter how you end the season. Like I don't think OOTP has like momentum that carries over from the end of the season to the playoffs or anything like that.
I don't know.
And
I think I would disagree on that
you
personally.
think it does?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess when you have also when you have the top two starting pitchers in the league, um, I think anything could happen if you make the playoffs. I really wanted to avoid being a wild card team because it's just one more series that your team has to go through.
Yep.
But
Yep.
um, it's in a wild card series, it's tough to have to face those two. So it did end up working out, even if I made some questionable moves.
Yeah, and talking about the playoffs, even though you did have those two aces, and they did play a big part in your run, they really weren't the story of your playoff though. It was
No,
your young bats coming to life and really just having the best playoff we've seen in this young league's history. Like these guys both are probably 1 and 2 in terms of playoff performances. And of course, we're talking about Pat Farrow and Victor Rivera.
yeah, they really carried me. I don't know that I mean, I got really good performances from almost all of my starting pitching. Mark Morales was really good as well, but I don't know that I would have won the championship without Victor Rivera, especially just carrying, kind of like putting the team on his back and carrying me. And I went through, I think at least in the first round, or maybe no, in the first round, I think that was the wild card round. I went through some teams that were tough, and I didn't expect to beat them. I thought on paper they looked better than my team. And so going into the playoffs, I didn't feel a whole lot of pressure because I didn't really have very high expectations for the team. And they really surprised me with how well that they ended up doing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so the first round, speaking of who you faced, you had Louisville in the first round, and of course they were,
Hmm.
even though they had a crazy awesome run in 2006, they were the defending champions. And I feel like you were the favorite in that series. You dispatched them 3-1, so you ended that magic from the Rivermen. And then you did go into your second series against Spokane,
Yeah.
um, and that was an interesting series. Of course, you get up to the 3-0 series lead, blew the next 3 games, and then won a decisive game 7. Do you remember anything from that series and what you were thinking as that was going on?
I mean, I think I said this in the preseason podcast, but I was like pulled over at a gas station watching it on my phone. And yeah, I just remember thinking this is really bad that that I went up 3-0 and then it went to a game 7. So I was relieved. I didn't have high hopes, but then when you go up for this team going into the playoffs, but then when you go up 3-0 on like a 100 win team, and it looks like you're gonna maybe advance out of the second round of the playoffs, I started to get high hopes, and then it looked like they might kind of play with my heartstrings a little bit, and then collapse again in crazy fashion. So
Yep. And then once you survived that, obviously you got San Diego in the conference championship series, and they had a good team again this year as well. You took care of them 4-2, and at that point you're back in the championship. And
yeah.
obviously, and I just want to first of all just thank you for knocking out the Sasquatches and the Seals. Everybody knows I don't want to see either of those goddamn teams win the
Yeah.
championship anytime soon. So you really did a great service for this league. Um, so thank you for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and hopefully the
Happy to
Rooney
do my
never
part.
wins a championship until the Paddlers do, and then the floodgates can open.
Hmm.
That's how I feel. But yeah, anything else stick out from the rest of your championship? Obviously, you had Somerville in the championship, the TBL championship. Somerville had what we like to call an odd season, where they are really amazing. But yeah, a 4-2 win in the championship as well, and really just those big bats continuing to just be crazy, right?
Yeah, Somerville was a really scary team. Their lineup was way deeper than mine. It
Yeah,
seemed like almost all of their hitters could do damage, and they had a really good pitching staff. I remember, I think it was maybe the first 3 innings of the first game, their star like center fielder injured himself on a throw, something bizarre like that. So I did kind of luck out with that. Um, and then it reminded me a lot of, I think it was similar with the last championship I was in, where it was tied 2-2, and then we took a break and then resimmed, the next night. And the last time that happened, I like then immediately lost the next 2 games and was out. So I was relieved that the result was, I think the result was the opposite this time. I think I won the next two. I could be wrong.
well, you won four. That's I don't remember either, but you won four, so you're the TBL
Yeah.
champion. I do know that part.
Mhm.
Just talking a little bit about the season, the postseason that your studs have. Just for example, looking at the postseason records now, Pat Farrow now has the record for hits in a postseason with 33. The previous record was 32, so he just barely broke that record. One that stands out to me big time, total bases. Victor Rivera had 76 total bases in that playoff. The record before that was 56. So he had 20 more total bases
Hmm.
than any other player. And Pat Farrow, number two, was at 62 that postseason. So you had the top two total base guys. So they
Yeah.
just kept circling and circling the bases. Obviously, set the record for home runs in a postseason with 14. The record before that was 8, so almost
Hmm.
doubled it really. Pat Farrow had 9, so he would have set the record as well. Just some crazy, crazy offensive numbers put up by those
Yeah.
two individuals.
Yeah. And Victor Rivera really had a down year. I was kind of worried about
Yeah,
him because he wasn't, he didn't really hit the regular season. I think he was like slightly above average. So
yep. All
he was
his
just
numbers
saving it
right
up.
now, with the exception of doubles, he had a lot more doubles last year, but all his numbers right now in 2008 in 10 less games are offensively are an increase from last year. So
Yeah.
that's actually crazy. If you look at his numbers, like 2006 he had 22 doubles. 2008 right now he has 26 doubles. In that 2007 season he had 43 doubles, but he had
Yeah.
20 less home runs. So it's like he hit the top of the warning track or the top of the wall like 20 times and just missed a home run basically.
Yeah. That is weird.
Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, so now that you are a champion, what are a couple of factors that you think are critical for building a successful team? Like if you were giving advice to other GMs.
Um, I would be patient with the farm system. If you're kind of on the fence and you're like a 500 team and you're not sure like how to go about try or you're like a basement dweller and you're not sure where to start, I would start with that. Definitely pump up your development budget all the way. Get some good coaches because I also have, I think, legendary pitching and hitting coaches. Um,
Do
and
you have those in the
then
major leagues or the minor leagues?
in the major leagues, I don't really pay a whole lot of it. I probably should pay more attention to my minor league coaches, but I just kind of max out my development budget and hope that it takes care of it. I don't really micromanage my minor league system very well, other than just the my like top 20 prospects. Every sim I'll check to see like if they should be, if they're still appropriate for the level that they're at. Um, and then I set the settings so it like they stay in whatever level I put them in,
Yep.
and then we'll raise them or lower them. And then the rest of my minors I just automatic have the AI set up. So yeah, I would just be patient. Uh, this I feel like this league, it's
Wait,
I feel like it's
is there a
go
way to
ahead.
lock your sorry, is there a way to lock your top prospects so that when you hit auto AI reorg, it keeps those prospects in place and auto reorgs everything else?
Yeah, if you under
Wow.
strategy, you can go on the right-hand side, it says lock to team / lock strategy settings.
Oh my goodness, I'm such a
So
noob, but that is so helpful. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
that's what I do. Because I do care about like my top guys, but the rest of it I really don't care about.
Yeah, no, that
Um,
makes sense. Like I feel like I meticulously set up minor leagues sometimes, but that would be so much easier if I could just put the guys I care about where I want them, and then everybody else fall in place. So,
yeah, and I'm sure you've noticed I don't really manage the rest of my farm system because pretty much every season you remind me that I have like 5 pitchers in my rookie league.
you're not the only guilty party. And actually, I it actually brings up a good point. I discovered this year there's not even enough pitchers to fill the rookie league for everybody.
Mm,
So I randomly created 50 dudes, um, and just put them on 2 different teams this year. And I let those GMs know, but literally there was no one in free agency for them to sign. So there were
gotcha.
20,
Yeah.
there were like 50 guys that have created with the tag of bench or worse.
Mm,
And now they're on the St. Louis team and the Boston Boom. I'll
all
shout the
right.
2 GMs out who didn't have any pitching. So um, hopefully, as we move forward, please let me know if anybody's listening to this and there's not enough guys to fill a roster. I'll make adjustments and fix that shit. So, but anyway, sorry, off topic a little bit there. Um, let's see.
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say I would be patient with your minors. Try to get guys that aren't liabilities defensively at every position.
Yep.
I'm a really big fan of like strong defense up the middle, so I always have catchers that really can't hit and but can field just because I feel like they're good value, and then a good defensive shortstop, which I lucked out with Victor Rivera, and a decent center fielder as well.
Yeah, we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't mention your defensive catcher who was 2 for 50 in the playoffs. You clearly do favor defense to be able to put up the bat because the dude was hitting like .01. Like it was pretty bad.
Yeah, I did bench him the last sim, um, but the other guy didn't do any better. So
Yeah, yeah,
he had like 133 or something. So
yeah. All right, so championship in hand. What do you think the future of your franchise looks like? Obviously, you are a playoff contender this year. Slightly down year. We did pick you to win the division. And we picked Las Vegas to win the division. Both of you guys having both playoff teams, but both not living up to expectations. So, how do you feel about this season? What do you think the future is going to look like in terms of like the length of your window?
yeah, for the record, I picked Kingston. I still want that jinx to be in effect going into the last sim
You
of the
did do
season.
that. Yeah,
Um,
you reverse jinxed yourself because they're actually winning.
yeah, I feel pretty good about my team this year. The record isn't the best, but I do have the best run differential in the league. I have the best. I don't know if you ever pay attention to the ELO score, but the majority of championships in this league have been the team that leads the league in ELO score. I'm currently
Where
first
do
in
you
that.
see that?
It's on Stats Plus,
Okay.
um, and I think it just takes it the like level of your competition that you faced into account. So when you're trying to figure out like if there's obviously this league has drastically different levels of competition based on the division that you're in.
Yeah.
And I feel like at one point the ice conference was a lot stronger as well. So
Yeah, they
that
kind
just
of
kind of
flipped from the first 2 or 3 seasons. The Ruby used to be
yeah,
the strongest one too.
yeah. So that just kind of takes like the level of competition into account. So if you're
Or not
trying
the
to
Ice Conference,
compare,
yeah, excuse me.
yeah. So if you're trying to compare like how good a team is in the a good division in the fire conference with a bad division in the ice conference, that's like just like a handy, quick and dirty way to do that.
Yep. Okay.
And I think it's under historical. Yeah, historical ELO, and it will list. And up until I think 2005, the team with the highest ELO won every single. So they won like 4 championships in a row.
So you're thinking you have a chance to run it back this year. That's what you're saying.
I think so. When I try to look at which teams are most competitive or which will do the best in the playoffs, that's what I look at run differential. I look at ELO, and then I give a boost if they have a good top of the rotation because that you can basically throw out the bottom of the rotation. And I'm really happy with all of those for my team. So I mean, it's hard to win a championship. You have to go, there's a lot of randomness to the playoffs, but
Yep.
I feel like I have as good a chance as anyone else going into these playoffs.
Yeah.
If I make
Yeah.
the playoffs, assuming I make it, there's
Yeah.
a,
Yeah. Of course, you are right on the edge there. We shouldn't
yeah,
be
I think I'm four and a
crazy
half
optimistic.
games up.
You
So
you have a pretty nice lead. Yep. So you're
yeah,
in good shape.
right. But anything could
You never
happen.
know. Absolutely. Um, and of course, looking at your contract page, you do have a lot of expiring contracts. You have a couple guys locked up long term. Obviously, George Reed is locked up very long term for a lot of money, but he's probably worth it. Especially he's having a great year again, which is he must have had
Yeah.
a small injury, right?
Yeah, he was out for, I don't know, a month or so, something like
Yeah,
that, maybe a little longer.
but the time he's been here, he's maybe been the best pitcher in the league. 1.79 ERA. That's just broken right there. Chris Siegel, you've got him locked up for a couple seasons. But everybody else, there's a lot of expiring contracts here. So what does the future look like beyond this season? Victor Rivera obviously locked up. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, I have the guys that I really care about locked up: Pat Farrow and Victor Rivera, George
Sweeney locked up.
Reed.
Sweener.
Yeah. So
Angel
I'm
Lopez,
not.
you're probably not too psyched about that one.
Oh yeah. I've made a lot. I cleared out a lot of salary and then I signed some more bad salary. So, but I don't think it. I'm not. I'm in much better financial shape than I am now, or
Yeah.
than I was before. A lot of these expiring contracts, like Omar Gonzalez, isn't worth $30 million. I just really wanted him back on my team because I like him a lot.
Yep.
Um, so a lot of it isn't the most uh, efficient salary, and I'm not too worried about a lot of it expiring. And I like to be active in free agency. I think it's boring when you have all your guys locked up and you just kind of
Sure.
plug and play the same guys every single season. So I'll play around in free agency and hopefully be able to sign some better guys.
I think your core is going to stick around, right? Like, and I feel like I've said this on most of the championship podcasts. Like, oh, your core is still there, and then teams fall off, so who knows? Um, but I think the thing that kind of, when I'm looking at your contract page, that kind of concerns me about your future is your bullpen. Your bullpen might be taking a hit after this year because you've got a lot of guys locked up on expiring contracts and not cheap contracts in their guys that'll definitely draw a market if they hit free agency.
Yeah, I'm on the fence about extending Mike Jenkins. He's kind of been a little bit underwhelming.
It looks like
Um,
he's on the decline numbers wise, but
yeah,
hard to tell, right? He's
same with
30. I mean,
John.
John
Yeah,
Dykstra and the other Dykstra, Devin Dykstra, both
the other
bad
Dykstra I
years.
made a extension offer to,
Okay.
and currently I have too many pitchers right now. So I have Scott Hope spent much of the season in the minors, even though he's solid. Um, and I just called up Matthew Kia, who looks like he's ready as well. So I have other guys that will step in and take their place. Um, I'm not too worried about the bullpen, and I have like 50 million, something like that, to be able to sign a guy or two. Um, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm really more worried about the core that I have now is like in their late 20s,
Yep.
and so they're gonna age probably in the next, 2 or 3 seasons, and then I might be looking at I don't know. We'll see what I'm looking at. I'm tempted when if we do switch over to the new version to kind of
Yeah, that
rebuild
can change a
then,
lot of things.
because I think a lot of these I don't really want to build up a farm system and then switch to the new version and have half of them be worthless.
For sure. That's a
Um,
super risk. And I hate that part about changing versions
yeah,
for sure. So I think that's kind of a smart strategy. I feel
yeah,
bad for anybody with a killer farm system right now. I pray for you. I pray it works and that you are able to hold on to all your sexy prospects, but
yeah.
you
But I
never
think
know.
going forward, once we do switch over to the new version, there's a lot less nonsense.
For the
There's going to be a
benefit.
lot less, yeah, there's going to be a lot less 80 potential prospects that immediately fall off a cliff as soon as you draft them. I think a lot of the ratings are a lot more straightforward. I'm doing a draft now, and there's like not a whole lot of 80. I don't think there's any 80 potential players. I feel like you're really looking at the ratings are more accurately reflect the ability of the players and the potential ability of the players. Um, I think there
For
will
sure.
be a lot more scarcity with the good prospects. You might not be
Yeah,
able to like
they've definitely
swindle
reduced it. It's
teams
not like
by,
a million
yeah,
free guys now, right? So
right. So you might not be able to like sell high on guys that you think are going to fall off a cliff as
yeah,
often.
yep,
But I think it's just a lot more straightforward, which I appreciate.
great. And so I guess my last question for you about the future of the franchise, Mr. Man of 100 leagues, are you going to bail once we're back into a rebuild mode here? Are you going to stick through
No, I
it?
enjoy a good rebuild. The thing that I really look for in a league isn't necessarily like a super competitive team, but just like that they're active
Yeah, I
socially.
know. Yeah, I'm
Um,
just giving you a hard time.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, I usually when I bail from a league, it's because it's like a ghost town.
yep. And honestly,
And
everybody has their own reasons. If you did after the
yeah,
play, obviously you're about to be a dad
right,
for the first time. We just lost
yeah,
our two-time champion in Atlanta, so people get busy and life happens.
yeah,
So obviously it's all in good fun that I'm asking you.
yeah. But I really like this league. I appreciate how active it is, and that we do these podcasts. And it's one of the more enjoyable leagues that I've probably been in throughout my entire history of playing OTP. So I plan on sticking around.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that. That's
Yeah,
good to hear.
yeah.
All right. So I will be honest, we're on Zoom here and we have 3 minutes and 15 seconds before the team kicks us out. So is there anything else you'd like to share about your experience, the league, or any memorable moments from your championship run last year?
Um, Nothing really is jumping out at me. I'm I'm glad we've got a lot of new GMs this season, so that's kind
Yeah.
of fun that we have a lot of new guys. Some of them are going to be in the playoffs for the first time. It looks like Denver and Boston have a chance to be in the playoffs for the first time.
Yeah, I'm happy for both of those guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's all really exciting. I'm just really happy about the direction the league is going in. I think there's a lot more parity than there was when I first joined. Um, and it's fun to see the kind of new GMs. So that's going to be fun. And the playoffs will be starting, I think, tomorrow, maybe.
Hopefully,
So
we'll see, right?
okay,
Well,
so I'll just
well,
yeah.
depending on Chris, who's supposed to be the one hosting this podcast,
Oh,
who's
gotcha,
still listening at this point.
gotcha.
I'm throwing you under the bus, Chris.
So I'll just wish all the playoff teams and potential playoff teams
Yeah.
best of luck
Yeah.
going forward.
Awesome. All right. Well, awesome, Michael. Well, thank you for doing this podcast. I'm sure everybody will be, happy to listen to what you had to say here and your experience, and to hear from our champion. And I'm glad we were able to give you your due as champion, because
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out.
did come a little late. Yeah, we're going to be doing the 2008 championship podcast in a week, so we'll sneak this one in. So. All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll wrap it up here, and we'll do the playoffs here in about 30 minutes, and we'll see who's in the playoffs, or excuse me, do the Sims here in 30 minutes and see who's in the playoffs. And then we'll have a little listening material as we wait for our playoff teams.
All right, sounds good. Have a good one.
You as well.
Thanks. Bye.